All right, guys, it does a lot, but let's look around. It's going to take a minute. Of course, you've got your single-ended 3.5, your 4.4 pentagon, as well as your various indicators for kilohertz input, of course, your volume, your basically tone here is X space and X bass, as well as if you press and hold this with the unit on, it'll go into a settings menu. Of course, input and Bluetooth pairing. Obviously, the screen up top. Now, the IE match. I don't really have any in-ear monitors, so I didn't really use this. However, in the case of using sort of standard over-ear headphones, it kind of functions as a gain switch. Now, when it comes to basically the X space and X bass, along with this switch on the back, I will talk about those in kind of their own little tidbit. They basically function as sort of tone controls in a way. Now, one nice thing about this is they separated the power from the data. On a lot of older iFi products, they combined them into one socket, and that's great. But what if I want to run this off a computer while powering it, for example? Or, you know what I mean? I just want those to be separated. It makes it a lot of things more convenient in terms of usage. And they do that here, and it's a nice feature. Of course, you've got a combination mini SPDIF coaxial, as well as a mini toslink input. You also have a balanced and single-ended input, as well as output. Now, when these are being used as inputs, you switch to the line. Now, anytime you're on the line input, and let's go to it real quick. There we go. These function as inputs. And of course, anytime you're in anything else, they function as outputs. It would have been nice if these balanced and the single-ended were separated so that you could use them as individual inputs and outputs, for example. It's kind of a shame. It sort of takes away a little bit of the functionality, in my opinion. In its current state, you can actually use this as a preamp to a power amp, and I've done that, and it works great. It works fine. However, you can't use analog ins in that particular usage because as soon as you go to an analog input, either or, your output suddenly becomes an input, and that works for both. So it's kind of a shame in that respect. One other tidbit that I was going to mention, until I sort of discovered that you can do it. I was going to complain that you had to kind of scroll all the way down, all the way to the left to go to mute, and that was the only way to do it. Now, if you spin this thing sort of fast, you can see it ramps up quick and down quick. However, if you just do like this, you can see it's quite a bit slower. Anyway, so if you press this just momentarily, it goes to mute. Press it again, it goes back to the previous volume. Of course, it does remember when you turn it off your previous volume, as well as settings, as well as input. So you don't have to worry about, switching back or anything. Now, if you press and hold this for a couple of seconds, it'll go to here. It'll go to digital filter, factory reset, USB dual port charge. Basically, you can use this one as a charging port for a device, for example, using its internal battery, screen brightness, Bluetooth voice prompt, obviously you know what that is, digital filter, and this one, I forget what I put, not available. Okay, anyway, whatever. So yeah, that's basically it. Pretty simple. Not much in the way of these kind of things, but anyway, that's it for the tour. All right, everybody, so let's take and talk about build quality first. And in my opinion, I think it's just like a lot of iFi products. There are a few things that are kind of wiggly on here, the volume, but it's fairly well built. It feels solid in the hand. Feels like you could sort of throw it around and it would be fine, you know, kind of what I come to expect from iFi audio in terms of build quality. Now, when it comes to sound quality with headphones, and I've primarily been using, of course, my Meze 109 Pro, which I'll be doing a review on in a few weeks or so. It's actually been fantastic. I've primarily been using the S-balanced or the 3.5 single-ended, and it's just sounded fantastic. Again, you get a lot of that richness, a lot of that weight. It's definitely exemplified by the warm-sounding mezzes, definitely so. And to me, it just makes sort of a very saccharine sound, very, not thick, but definitely a very warm sound, without really sacrificing any speed or you know, or delineation, or sort of having like an old school kind of hi-fi sound. It definitely has a hi-fi sound for sure, more modern audiophile type sound, but really, really good in my opinion. I've tried out the 4.4 balance, the Pentacon, and as much as I want to say that there was a huge difference, it was night and day between the two. God, it was just, man, it was just, this was crappy compared to this. The Pentagon was just, oh, it was just tremendously better. Unfortunately, I can't say that. What I heard switching between the two, now I'm using the included iFi cable, or excuse me, the meze cable with a single-ended, and I'm using a off third-party balanced cable that I picked up off of Amazon. But to me, I didn't really hear too much of a difference. All I heard truly was sort of an increase in volume. 4.4, the Pentacon, was definitely louder, but it wasn't really any better in terms of sound quality, in my opinion. I think that comes down to this S-balanced. They kind of do something with the circuitry, and I'll link down below, you guys can go check it out, but they do something with that in there to kind of give it a faux balanced, that sort of thing is, I think, kind of what they're going for, and they do a good job with it, and it functions well. And again, I didn't really hear a true sonic difference between the two balanced or single-ended headphone outs. What I noticed was just sort of an increase in volume. There was probably a slight increase in maybe detail retrieval, although that could also be related to the increase in volume. Typically, when you turn something up louder, you hear more of it. So I'm going to chalk it up to that. But anyway, overall, my rating, let's get to it. Now, one thing I forgot to talk about, and that is the Bluetooth quality. Now, the Bluetooth, in my opinion, is fantastic. It's right up there with the Nano i1, which is an older iFi product that was just a DAC but had Bluetooth built in. And at the time, and still to this day, this particular product was probably the best, and I repeat, best implementation of Bluetooth I had ever heard, period, bar none. Now, I've tried the Zenair Blue, the Zen Blue, various other iterations and other products besides, but none of them have come close at all to the Nano i1 and its supremacy in terms of Bluetooth sound quality. And except now for the iDSD Gryphon. Its Bluetooth is fantastic. It's right up there next besides the Nano i1. Now, I'm using a Pixel 7, and when you use Pixel 7, it comes across as LDAC, which is one of the higher bitrate codecs for Bluetooth. And so that could have something to do with it. But really, you lose a little bit of detail, but everything I mentioned in terms of warmness and lushness and sort of meatiness does not change from something like a USB to the Bluetooth. Again, you do lose a little bit of detail retrieval, these sorts of things, and a little bit of sparkle up top, but it's very minimal. I mean, very minimal. The Bluetooth is, again, right up there with the best I've heard. So comparing it, it was actually one of my favorite aspects of the whole device was the Bluetooth. Obviously the USB, the SPDIF, the analog in, all of those work well and function great, exactly like you'd expect. And basically all prior mentioned things in terms of sound quality are there. But really the Bluetooth was the standout feature in my opinion. So what's my final thoughts? Well, my final thought is I like it. I like it a lot. I particularly like the versatility. I particularly like the Bluetooth. My use case for this would be more like at a desktop where you're sitting with a laptop, Of course, it's portable, but I wouldn't want to carry this around with me in my pocket. It's pretty chunky, and one pro, I forgot to mention it has a great, and I repeat, great, and let me repeat again, fantastic battery life. I've had this thing a month, and I'm still on the original charge. So there's that. It's definitely a great product in that respect. Anyway, that's it. Highly recommended. Check them out. Again, check out the link below to take a look at it on their website.